Hello, good evening. Thursday evening, always a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to see you there of a Thursday night. We chat about sport. We've got a running theme this week, running literally, but our running theme is also football. So there's plenty of football chat between now and about 5 to 8. I've been talking today to former Owl star Neil Mellor and to ex-Blade Tony Kenworthy with some great topics, not least for Tony, that behind-the-scenes view of the transfer deadline day activity, the twists and turns at Sheffield United proved quite controversial, and Tony, as you'd expect, has got some very hard-hitting views on what that exposed, in particular views on agents. And with Neil Mellor, we'll be talking subjects including how Sheffield Wednesday kickstart their season, Jordan Rhodes, how best to use him, Fernando Forestieri, he always gets a look in, and we'll be talking about Jacob Butterfield. Neil's got a real respect for him as a player and a signing. I mentioned the running theme. Welcome to our special studio guest, Mike Tomlinson of Run for All. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening.
You thought it was radio, and you did remark to me that you were dressed for radio.
I dressed for radio, and I definitely got a face for radio.
Do you know, that's what they've been telling me for years, and I'm sure it's absolutely true. Mike, if you didn't know, Run for All is the organisation behind events including the Sheffield 10K, which is coming up, and what a game we've got as well on the day of the race. You also organise the Sheffield Half Marathon, of course, which I run. That's the last time I saw you, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, just after you finished, I think.
Just after I finished, yeah. Well, I've just come in.
You did
now.
Finish, didn't you?
I did. I've just literally the last 5 minutes. Yeah, I did. Yeah, running up the hill. I don't know when you organised it, you realised that you wouldn't have done that the Sheffield Football Derby at Hillsborough was on the same day as this 10K.
No, the date's set a year earlier. So the football. Yeah, there's quite a lot of things to fit in, because we've got a schedule pretty much like a football team, various events and dates, and it's got to fit with what's going on in the city and the event space in the city.
Yes.
So we set it up kind of a year before, and obviously the football fixtures come out in June. But then it was set for the Saturday, the game, and then they moved it to the Sunday, and then Sunday dinner time for Sky. So, you know, it'll be a busy morning, but what a great chance to get fans running before the match.
It is. I mean, it's pretty tight. I mean, it's a 9:30 start in the city centre for the 10K, and it's a 1:15 start at Hillsborough for the Derby. But I'm imagining, and I'm pretty sure that what you like is to see fans who are going to the game, and there'll be thousands, of your runners who are supporters of both teams, coming in shirts. Yeah. They'll just, in fact, don't have a shower, just go straight to the ground.
Yeah, do you know what? There's enough time. Most people will finish at 10K. Most people will be finished by 11:15.
Yeah.
It's plenty of time to get changed, and there's a baggage store, so you can just swap out shirts, whatever you need to do. But yeah, no, we want to embrace the day. Yeah, come and dressed in your shirts, and if we've got Chesterfield fans, come in Chesterfield shirts as well.
Yeah, that would be me. If I'd got to go, I'll probably be at Hillsborough. I'll have to do some preparation on the game. So my excuse is I've got to be at Hillsborough early enough to sort of do that.
Well, just train a bit harder and run a bit faster.
There is always that. There is always that. We'll come back to this. As I say, our running themes throughout the show and more on the big day on September the 24th as the show goes on. We're going to go and talk to Neil Mellor in a minute. But first of all, obviously, it's been a big week for the Tomlinson family. For those who don't know, I'm sure there's nobody who doesn't know, the inspirational Jane Tomlinson, when faced with a diagnosis of terminal cancer, given months to live, carried on for, I think, seven years.
She lived for 7, yeah. And
before she passed 10 years ago. And, I mean, lovely family shot of you, Jane. There we are. There's the family. And you've kind of, it's almost as if she's had a baton in a relay, and you've picked up that baton, and you've carried on. Carried on.
I used to, Jane did the events and I did the fundraising part of it. It's a hard thing to do, just to carry on after she died, and carry on with the fundraising. you want to stop to some extent because
As a sign of respect.
No, just because
Well, have a look at Jane running as well while you're talking. Yeah.
I suppose for them, it's hard. She's omnipresent. Her image is there, and the name's there, and you're carrying on. You know, when you're grieving, you just want to parcel it off. So it's kind of, it was a bit of a challenge to do it for the first few years. Was a real struggle to keep going with it, but ultimately the aim is to raise as much money as we can for charity, for as many charities as we can. Yeah. So I think you kind of just got to put it to one side. And
has that helped you with the grieving process? The fact that you it not helped?
No, it doesn't help at all. No. I suppose if you imagine it, if you're married and your partner dies, you would grieve and eventually move on. But this doesn't stop you moving on, but you're never away from Jane's name, you're never away from image. The name's over the events, so there's from my point of view, I'm constantly wanting to make it, I want to make it the best we can anyway, but it's got Jane's name on it. So the last thing I want to do is mess that up. So it doesn't help, it's doesn't help, it's not a cathartic process.
No. The rest of the family, do they feel the same way as you about it, or?
I think it's difficult.
Have they found a release in it?
You know, Suzanne was, I think for the two girls, I think all three of them have had a different journey. Yeah. And for Stephen, it's probably been, he was 3 when he was told his mum was going to die. He hadn't a clue what that meant, to be perfectly honest. But he was 10 when she died. So he had the dual problem of having to be brought up by me by himself, which was a challenge for him.
Yeah, and you.
No, not as much for me. But so it's quite hard. It's a tough journey for him, you know. And as for the girls, they went through that point where they were going through the puberty and growing up at the point where she was dying, and they handled it very differently. Becca didn't even acknowledge her mum was poorly to anybody else, so none of her friends knew until Jane was on the telly the first time, and they, what, your mum's dying? Why didn't you ever tell us? Yeah. And Suzanne's quiet. She's just a little bit older and a bit more pragmatic about it. It's not easy. It's not easy for kids to. I think it's easy, at whatever age you are, to lose your mum. It's especially not easy for kids.
No, but it's wonderful that her name lives on, and she'd have been so pleased, chuffed, really. That, I mean, you've raised £10 million in her name now. It was 1.8, I think, when she left you. You raised £10 million. We'll talk a bit about that in a few minutes' time with Mike, and indeed the big day on the September the 24th. Meantime, the first of our football inserts comes with Neil Mellor, former Liverpool and Sheffield Wednesday player. Of course, he had a season on loan, and very prolific he was too at Hillsborough. Talking to him earlier today about what it's really going to take to get Sheffield Wednesday's season up and running. Great that you could join us again. I know you're a busy man with your Sky Pundits hat on, having played the game at a very high level, so it's always good to talk to you. And the Championship is something that's not a precise science, is it, in football? It's so unpredictable. Sheffield Wednesday versus Nottingham Forest, but any kind of instinctive thoughts?
Yeah, well thanks for having me on. I think you look at it and go, the way Forest finished last season, just surviving, very nearly being relegated. They've started the season really well under Mark Warburton, but I think if you look at the two sides, you're saying that Sheffield Wednesday is certainly the side who you expect to be up there, certainly competing for those promotion places. So on paper, you're looking at it and going, you would think Sheffield Wednesday would certainly start favourites for this game.
Yeah, it's about winning now, isn't it? Because you know, 6 points from 5 games. Nottingham Forest have got more than that because they've won 3. They might have lost 2, but they've won 3.
Yeah, I think Nottingham Forest have started the season really well. I actually saw them not too far away from Wednesday at Barnsley in a midweek game, and Barnsley won the game. It was a defeat for Forest, but Forest played really well. They created so many chances time and time again. They just weren't clinical on the night, and that was the reason why they were beaten. I think they'll always give you a chance defensively. They like to play out from the back. It's something we've seen Mark Warburton do before at Brentford, and then he went up to Rangers, did the same, and he's doing the same at Forest. So if Sheffield Wednesday are brave and they press high and have a good go at that Forest defence, there'll be opportunities there for Sheffield Wednesday. The concern I've had when watching Sheffield Wednesday, and I don't see a lot of them, but I just feel as though, do they create enough chances? Do they really look that clinical side, which I think we've got strikers capable of scoring goals, but I look at Wednesday and go, they're not a free-flowing scoring side, and they're always involved in really tight games.
You share that concern with a lot of people, I think, Neil. Certainly the intention has got to be to maximise those strikers that you've mentioned there. Talking of which, what do you see as the best combination? Do you see it as being Hooper and Fletcher, or do you think Rhodes should be in that too?
Well, I think Hooper and Rhodes are more natural goal scorers. Whether you can play them together, I'm not too sure. One thing's for certain, if you have goal scorers in your team, you need other players to go and support them into the penalty area. Now, if the cross comes in and there's only that goal scorer, whether it's Hooper, whether it's Rhodes in the penalty area, they're going to be easily marked. If there's 2, 3, maybe 4 defenders around them, it's very hard for them to find that space. If there's more intent to get forward with midfield players, wide players, getting into the penalty area to affect those defenders, these natural goal scorers, Hooper and Rhodes, will find the space and score goals. And I can see it last season, Sheffield Wednesday didn't score enough goals, and it started that way again. Now, Sheffield Wednesday are a hard side to beat, and like I said, they're involved in a lot of tight games. I certainly expect a top 6 finish. But it could be the difference between finishing the top 2 and the playoffs if they really can get going as an attacking force and start scoring more goals. So that's the sort of style which, I don't know, the manager may fall upon it eventually, but this is his 3rd season now, and there doesn't appear to be that real free-flowing scoring Sheffield Wednesday side, which the quality they have, the players they have, suggests that maybe they could be.
You scored 20-odd goals in your one season on loan at Hillsborough. I mean, clearly the expectation of Jordan Rhodes would be of something similar if he gets that service. Are you pleased that he's still there, because there was a lot of speculation in the window? Yeah,
well, like I say, he's a natural goal scorer. He knows how to score goals. But if the support's not there, he's going to be isolated, he's going to be outnumbered, and it's very, very hard to try and find that sort of space inside the penalty. I think he has that natural instinct to do so. And if he's not going to get that support, then the chances are going to be really hard to come by. And that's the big thing for me, and it would be frustrating for Jordan, because he has that instinct to score goals, and when you're a striker and you're going through a period of not scoring goals, it is very frustrating. And he hasn't established himself as the first name on the team sheet, which I'm sure when he made that move he would have wanted to have been. But it's still such a long way to go, Alan. You're looking at it and thinking, Sheffield Wednesday are one of the strong contenders to be competing for those promotion spots. If they can get it right, if they can clip that front line, then you really think that Wednesday can have a really successful season.
Interesting on Jordan Rhodes, among other topics there. And a little later in the show, we're getting Neil's take on the Fernando Forestieri situation. He's very interesting on that, by the way, and on his thoughts on the signing of Jacob Butterfield. Tony Kenworthy for Blades fans is coming up shortly. Before we went into that, you're a football fan, by the way, Mike, aren't you?
I am,
mean, this isn't going right over your head because you're steeped in the game.
Yeah, I've been watching Burnley for probably 50 years.
Proper football club.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They've had a bit of a renaissance for the last 7 or 8 years. A couple of really good managers with Eddie Howe and Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
But I'm a Chelsea fan really, but I've got a season ticket at Burnley.
Chelsea, where's that come from then?
First game I saw on the telly was Tottenham Chelsea in the Cup final in '67. My dad went to the World Cup final in '66, so coming off the back of '66, my dad went to just low quarter-final, semi-final group games. So that was the first. At them days, you only watched one game a year on the telly, didn't you? The cup final.
Yeah.
So it's been Chelsea since then, I'm afraid.
Yeah, '67. It was 2-1 to Spurs. Frank Saul scored at least one of the goals, didn't he?
I should have realised then, shouldn't I, the misery that would cause for a lot of years.
I don't know. It's all relative. I don't know whether that's misery, but you must be enjoying Burnley at the moment. And Sean Dyche, I mean, crikey, what an achievement from that fella and that club.
Yeah, they've done really, really well. And they haven't spent a lot. I mean, they probably haven't spent anything this transfer window. They work hard. They're well organised, well drilled. It's a well-run club, and you couldn't have always said that in the history of Burnley, to be perfectly honest.
No. Well, no, indeed. We'll drag you back to football as the show goes on. But just picking up the theme there, the family business, as it were, you know, the Run for All, and the charity funds that you've raised in the name of your late wife, Jane. £10 million. Could you ever have imagined that?
No, when we started, Jane aimed to raise 5,000.
5,000?
Yeah. You don't, do you? If you're taking part in the London Marathon, you're going to tap your friends up, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's a bit easy to tap your friends up when you're dying, because they're going to give a little bit more, because they want to show their support. We thought that was going to finish after she ran the marathon. To be honest, we never thought she'd win a marathon, and it's just kind of carried on. There's a real passion for it for me and the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, just because Jane's died doesn't mean that people still need a lot of help. You know, especially the last 10 years in the country, you know, with the austerity and government cutbacks.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of work to be done. What else am I going to do in my life?
Right. Okay. Well, that answers what was going to be my next question: is when's enough going to be enough? But we will pick that up with you. Tony Kenworthy of Sheffield United. Do you know what? For Blades fans, there's only been one topic of conversation this week.
Tony, good of you to join us, mate. We're all talking, aren't we, about this Bleacher Report film on Sheffield United's deadline day. Just tell me, first of all, as somebody steeped in football, was there anything in there actually that surprised you?
Well, no, not really. Obviously, agents are now involved in football, and football has changed a little bit since I was playing, but obviously the basics are the same.
Does anything about it sadden you, though? I mean,
yeah, it did.
People have been shocked, but also saddened by a couple of players, not one in particular, not signing, apparently because his agent told him not to.
You've got this situation of Jerome Sinclair, I think, that sat at the train station waiting for a phone call from his agent, and this is stopping young players playing football for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad in a way that Sheffield United's a huge club, and this player could have come and played first team football for a fantastic, brilliant manager, brilliant football club, and the best supporters in the country. And these guys are stopping them doing it. And for me, they've got to start bringing back player to manager and manager to player, really.
I mean, let's remember that the player pays the agent works for the player and not the other way around. So are you surprised that players are not prepared to say, hang on a minute, I want to sign for this club?
Well, for me, it's got to change, Alan. You know, I mean, these players, these footballers now are media trained to come out with the monotone voices and say the right things in different orders, because that's the way they've been trained. And for me, instead of media training these players, if the business train them for a season or for a year, and these players then can take charge of their own destinies, and instead of just for figures, instead of the agent getting £100,000, the player gets an extra 25. And if you business train them to deal with their own contracts, then that's the way forward for me.
That's a very good idea, because it does strike you that these players from an early age are almost taught not to think for themselves. They're in the academy system from maybe 13, 14 years of age. Everything's done for them. Everything's decided for them.
Well, yeah, you know my view on the academy. I think the academy system is ruining the game. For me, it's ruining young players. Young players, like you say, at 14-year-old are told exactly what to do, but they're also told that all the year, since from 14 upwards, is yes, yes, yes. They don't hear anything else. They don't hear the word no. They don't hear. It's all development, and we've got to develop these players. And
Business trained players. What a great idea. More from Tony Kenworthy in part 2, more from Neil Mellor, and of course James Gregg will join me, and our studio guest Mike Tomlinson. Take 5. See you in a bit.